I have a fun little video for you today. We're going to be doing a little two-part thing. It's going to be, the first part will be gesso, the second part will be oil. This is an easy one anybody can do, so come along with me while we paint. So here's my sketch, and I'm just going to show you this, and then I'm going to explain what I'm doing first, and then I have a little story for you. So anyway, we're going to use black, white, and gray gesso to do this undercoating. And we're also going to need a sponge. Now pick out a nice sponge that has a good kind of a lacy feel to it, because that's what we're going to be using on the trees. Really makes some wonderful, wonderful effects. So while I start out on this video, in the background, this is going to be just a grayish color. This is off in the distance. I want this further away than the rest of the painting. So it's going to be a little bit lighter color. And I just want you to watch and kind of follow along with what I'm doing here. As I come closer with the trees, I'm going just a little bit darker, just a shade darker. Now when I use this sponge, I want to just very, very lightly go into the paint so that just a few of the tips are highlighted with paint. And then when I touch the canvas, I'm also touching just extremely light, because I really want that lacy feel. And then just for some ground cover here, I'm just going back and forth and just bringing in this ground. Back here, we're going to have a few more bushes. Now this is going to be just a little bit darker again. And notice when I'm using this sponge, I will twist and turn it to make different patterns. I don't want every pattern to be identical to the previous one. So try and change your sponge around a little bit, get different patterns, make nice little bushes. Just go ahead and keep working on that for a minute. Darken this just a hair right back here, just a little bit. And that river water is going to go behind that little island there. And then up here in the trees, I want you to be particularly noticing the little branches, not branches, but little clusters of leaves. Make these clusters very obvious so that you can see through them. I want the sky to show through these trees. And be sure and cover up this corner here. I want this very dark in the corners so that it just brings your eye in towards the center of the painting. So we're just going to go ahead and work on those trees, and I'm going to start with my little story. This started actually, this story is about 2 weeks ago, a very special day. It was a Sunday, and it was July 14th of 2024. Our church had their annual summer picnic. Now I go to Joy Church in Grants Pass, Oregon. They have a lot of churches all over, but this is the one that I belong to. I want to give a really big special thank you to Denny and Jan for hosting this picnic. They have a place called the Teapot on Wheels, and it's on the Rogue River in Oregon. And I'll tell you, it is just the neatest place. These two people, they run the restaurant, but they also have weddings at their place and big tea parties. I mean, they have like, sometimes over 200 people on the grounds that they are feeding and entertaining. And it's just a wonderful place. So if you're anywhere in the vicinity, be sure and stop by and say hello. So a lot of people showed up at this picnic, this event. And at the picnic, they had, they had these huge water slides for the kids. They had this one as like a black tarp that they lay down on the grounds, and the grounds are long and sloping, and they go right down to the river. So the kids just have a ball on those water slides. And they had volleyball toss, volleyball. They had a thing called corn toss, kind of like beanbag baseball, where you throw these bean bags into a hole. It's a lot of fun. I haven't played it yet, but I'm going to be playing it very soon. And oh my gosh, they had food galore. I'll tell you, the church provided hamburgers and hot dogs and drinks. And everyone else brought a smorgasbord of food to share. My gosh, we had bean dips and salads and desserts and chips and salsas and oh, you name it, it was there. Just everybody shared and brought just a lot of food. So that was really great, and boy, did we fill up and get full. But what made this day so special is that it was also a picnic, not just excuse me, it was also a baptism, not just a picnic. And as it turned out, there were 9 people that got baptized. And most of them, all but 2 of them, were in the Rogue River of Oregon. So the temperature outside was 102 degrees. Oh my gosh, it was so hot. And that made the river feel extremely cold. And I don't like cold water, but I thought, well, my sister and I are doing this together, and so if she can go in this river, I can do it too. So anyway, yes, Sis and I got baptized. And I'll tell you, it was an experience like no other. When I was put under the water, it almost felt like for a few seconds there, or whatever time it was like I felt dead, like I was not born yet. And it's like time stood still, and yet there were these beautiful colors whirling around me. There were some greens and then some blues and yellows, and they were almost like iridescent colors, kind of like the rainbow, and they were just swirling around me, kind of like a tornado, and I was in the middle of this slow motion thing going around me. And then all of a sudden I came up out of the water, and it was like I was alive. That first breath, I was born again. My gosh, I can't describe what a wonderful feeling this was. It just was overwhelming. I felt so clean and so light and just full of joy. And my gosh, there was a lot of emotions. And then, of course, when I came out of the water, there was all this cheering, and that was really a lot of fun. But anyway, and then my sister, I don't know what her experience was. She hasn't told me yet. But oh my gosh, this was a wonderful, wonderful day for both her and I. At our age, to be baptized is a wonderful thing. So anyway, well, let's get back to this painting now. I'm down on the water and I'm creating little rocks. I've already done the background, the grasses and all that, and so I just want this feel of some rocks now. And they're dark, they're very dark, but we're going to be highlighting these, so they're going to be really pretty. I don't know why I decided to do this in 2 parts. I think because I love black and white paintings, for one thing, and using the gesso is just a wonderful medium to do these with. You can use acrylic, but I'll tell you, acrylic is a lot harder paint. It's a lot smoother paint, so it does not give you the texture of what a gesso does. So I would highly recommend, if you have gesso, use gesso and not acrylic. But acrylic will work if that's all you have. So now I just want to take a little bit of a lighter color, and way in the background here, the river's kind of swirling around and then coming forward. So this is just a light gray, a medium gray, and just going right back into the trees, or the bushes, whichever. And just keep working on that water, and just make, you can make your stream or your river whatever you want. You don't even have to have waterfalls if you don't want to. But I just thought the waterfalls would be kind of a nice little addition. And I called it Colorful Waterfalls because I am going to make this very colorful. So for the falls, just a little indication here. This isn't the final painting, so I don't want to go into a lot of detail. I just want these falls to just barely show for right now. Just sort of blend that into the background, and then let's do a couple little splashes down here where the water would land. and then off into the sides to make little kind of ripples in the water with this lighter color. When we put the actual color over it, you're going to find that it will look very pretty, I think. And let's have a few rocks in the water also. And I want various sizes. Don't make all your rocks or stones the same size. Vary the colors, vary the shapes, and vary where you place them. And then for the last thing, let's bring down this tree here. Just highlight this a little bit on the left-hand side. And then on this tree over here, let's highlight a little bit on the right-hand side, because that's where your light would be hitting. So, but I think this is going to be very pretty, but we'll see. Anyway, just do any last little minute touches that you want. Anything you see that you want to change in black and white, I would go ahead and do it now. And then just a little bit more highlight just in this background here. Just a very little bit. Like I said, this is not I don't want this to be the main part of the painting here. A few little indications of something going on in the background here. And a couple of little water lines. You know, this, you could just do this painting and just keep it in the black, white, and gray if you like. It still would be just a lovely painting all by itself without anything else. I love doing these gesso paintings. I've done quite a few of them in the past. If you look back on my videos, you'll find quite a few of them in the black and white. Okay, and I think this probably just about completes this part of it. Let's do a few little branches here. Now I'm using a liner brush. Thus far, I've only used the sponge and the filbert brush. Now I'm using the liner brush just to do a few little branches here and there, just kind of tying in these clumps of leaves to the main trunks. And if you would like, you could just put some evergreen trees back there instead of deciduous trees. I chose the deciduous trees because I just thought this is going to be a really interesting experiment with color. And I could do more with the leaves this way, I thought, than evergreens. They're just green. Although beautiful, they're just green. Just watch what I'm doing here. Just add as many limbs or as few as you like. Don't get too busy with it though. Over on the other side, just do the same thing, just adding those little limbs. Tying it all in together. And I think that's enough, so let's do my favorite thing to do, my little birds. And two here, and one down here, and how about one over on this side? There, perfect. So here's our finished black and white painting, and now we'll transition into the color. So I want you to completely let this dry. And now with just a clear oil medium, I'm dipping into with my shop towel, just going across this whole painting. I just want to get a light covering of oil over the whole painting. Not using white gesso or white liquid white or anything like that. This is just clear oil medium. You can use linseed oil, walnut oil, whatever you like. Now that sponge, I had wet it and I had squeezed it really dry because we are going to be using it with oil paint, and so you don't want the sponge to have any water. Squeeze it dry but yet wet enough so that it's still pliable, so you can still squeeze it and maneuver it around. So let's start out with Indian yellow, because that's a beautiful color to start with. As you know, it's probably one of my favorites. Now, Indian yellow is transparent, so you can see through it, which makes it wonderful for backgrounds. Just coming up a little bit and just blending, blending, blending. I'm coming up into the sky, probably about halfway up. I'm also went down into the water just a very tiny bit. And now let's add a little bit of red. Now don't get too much red to start with, just wipe a little bit, because sometimes it can get too bright. So if you wipe it off first, it should be just right. Just go back and forth, blend upwards into the sky. Add a little more here and there as you need it. And still up into the sky. Be sure and cover those edges too. And then come down into the yellow a little bit. Just sort of blend that red and the yellow together, just like you would blend the rainbow. So that's lovely. I like that. Okay, wiping that brush off. You don't need to clean it between colors. And cleaning every time is such a pain in the patoot. So with a little red and yellow, or excuse me, a real little red and blue, giving her just a slight, just to dull this blue color down, because the blue is very, very bright. But start in the corner so you can see how much blue you have, and then just work across the top. Just keep blending that in. Start working downwards, blending the blue into the red. And that'll give you almost like a little lavenderish color. It's very pretty, those two colors together. Now if you find it's too much blue, like this is too much blue here, be sure and wipe that brush off again. And then go ahead and continue blending. And just blend that to whatever degree you like. And by using this 3/4 inch floral brush, it's a soft bristle, and so being a soft bristle, it's not like the 1-inch landscape brush. This brush just makes beautiful effects, and it blends, it just really blends beautifully. All your colors, it'll just blend so nice. Now with a clean brush, still a little floral brush, just add a little bit of white here in this center area. I just want to lighten the sky a little bit right here. And use as much or as little as you need to make a brighter part of the sky, just to lighten it up like the sun would be back there somewhere, just maybe coming up over the hill. Yeah, that should be good. Okay, now with this sponge, it's dry. I mean, it's damp, but it's dry to the touch. You don't feel any water. Look for a nice little spot that has a lot of variation of little things sticking out, so that it's very, very lacy. And we're just going to pounce back and forth here. Now, I dipped into my green color. I just a sap green. And I'm just hitting my clumps. I just want to hit these clumps and give a little press Only sap green for right now. And you'll notice as you are pouncing on this, it starts to have that feel of green leaves, even though it's very dark in the background. Do the same thing on the other side. Lots of little pounces. I thought this made the tree look so realistic. I was really surprised at the effect that I'm getting. Gorgeous. And don't, like I say, don't leave some spaces. Don't fill in everything with green. Leave some of that blue and pink showing through. And right back here, let's add a little bit of color back here in the background. You could probably do this with a brush if you wanted. If you did this with a brush, I would use like a maybe your filbert brush or something that's like a boar bristle brush, something with stiff bristles. You could also make that tree effect with that. So now adding a little bit of yellow, we're just highlighting these little clumps of leaves. And just highlight where you think the light is going to hit the most. Beautiful effect. I just love this. Now just a touch of red. Let's just add a little bit more of a different color in here. It's very, very subtle. You'll barely see it. More yellow. Little touch of red. See how that starts to change the color just a little bit? We're still working on highlighting these clumps. Now just bring in a little bit of this golden color, adding the red to the yellow just changes the flavor. Makes it that pretty, pretty gold color. And a touch more red. Oh yeah, I like that. Just that little spark of red in there just is so cool. Now let's add a little bit down here on the bushes. I want to make this a little red color, kind of like a fall color. One on each side. And let's add a little blue, some white, and I'm just going to highlight this center bush here. The blue and white just makes a very interesting effect, I thought. And you could add any number of colors to this. You could make these bushes all different colors. The reds, the orange, the yellow, the green. Just whatever you like. And now back to my 3/4 inch floral brush. What I want to do is just start filling in this water. So I'm adding blue. There was just a little touch of green there, and the slightest bit of brown. And let's just go way in the background here and just start bringing that water forward. Comes around the bend and just goes right into towards the falls. And a little more color here, and let's just work on the falls. Just bring that down. You want this fairly dark because you're going to be adding highlights over the top of it. And down into the lower water. And just back and forth. I'm just covering that whole area. Blue, little touch of brown, little touch of red. You can just go right over everything right now, because we're going to highlight all that in just a few minutes here. I thought it was so fitting to do this water today with the baptism and all. It just, I don't know, it just kind of fit together for me. So now with my fan brush, going into a little bit of green and some brown, because I don't want this a really bright green. Let's also add a little Indian yellow here. And let's just fill in this grassy area. You don't need to be too fussy with this, just fill it in. Just a good coat of green. Let's do that same thing on the other side. Just fill that in. And brush up a little bit in the background. We want some of that dark green to come back in the back there. Just gives it more depth. So now with just yellow, load both sides of your fan brush. And I just want to start tapping along the top edge of the grasses here. Now when I'm doing this, I'm tapping, I'm almost taking my brush straight in. So the bristles are straight in. I'm not slanting, my handle is not pointed downwards, it's pointed more towards me, so that the bristles are going straight instead of curving. Otherwise, sometimes you get more of a smiley face, or a frown, I should say a frown face, you know, where the edges go down. I don't want that, but just these are very light little taps, and as I come away from that highlight area, I'm touching lighter and lighter because I want this to get darker in the edges. And see how that, by leaving those dark spots there, those dark areas, that gives the painting a lot of texture. Let's do the background here, the very back, where the water is just coming around the bend. Not too much to do back here. Now more yellow, more highlight color. Let's work on this other bend here. And see how I'm curving the brush to get that hill to get a downward slope. Just light little taps. let it get darker and darker as you go towards the edge. See how that looks so real? I just love that. Let's add a little red and yellow here. Let's deepen the color a little bit. Change it just ever so slightly. And now with some white and yellow, we're going to highlight even more. Especially right under this lighter spot in the sky. Very, very light taps. Don't go over it too much because then otherwise it'll just start smearing your paint. Leave a space and start another little clump here. And maybe even a third one. And back here, just a little bit of highlight. And on this hill, this definitely would have some highlight here. See, now that is very pretty. See how these kind of give it a different three-dimensional shape? But don't put too much highlight in there now. So with a little bit of brown, bringing it down flat with your knife. I'm using a small knife, a number 5 knife, and just a tiniest little touch of that green. Let's just go in the background here and just make a little bit of ground cover. It's like you can see some bank back there. That was just a little touch of white, barely touching the knife at all into that. Just highlight that hillside, the distant hill. Now moving forward, let's start working on this water a little bit. This off in the distance, we're just going to bring a few squiggly lines of white. So white with just a little touch of blue in there. Using the knife, just bring that water kind of around the bend. We want the water to have some motion, so I'm just using a back and forth motion to bring those water lines in. Yeah, that looks very cool. That looks very realistic. Now with a touch of brown, let's just go ahead and touch a few stones and dirt and things on this hillside back here. And with just a little touch of highlight, let's just go over the top of that. That'll really bring that hillside out. Now with my fan brush, I want a little touch of blue. And if you need to, if your paint is really, really thick, go ahead and just add maybe a little touch of oil in there, oil medium, to thin it out just a little bit, because for doing these waterfalls, you want kind of a thinner paint. Not real thin, but just a little bit. So coming across and drop. Try and make it as smooth as possible. Don't get jerky with it. Just a smooth across and drop. It takes a little while to get used to doing these falls, but once you get the hang of it, they are so much fun to make. Again, across and drop. And then let's go ahead and just make some splashes down here at the bottom. Fan brush works great for making these little splashes. Go ahead and reload that brush again, little touch of blue. And let's just go ahead along the bottom here and just go back and forth and make some water lines. I'm sort of blending in the water, been blending it with the blue, and yet making it look kind of hazy. That's looking very good. That looks very realistic. And just come up on your falls just a little bit and kind of blend that out, smooth it out a little bit. And with just a little more white, loading that brush on both sides. Let's highlight the top of these falls just a little bit more. We really want that to shine on top. And let's put one right in here. So I think we'll put a rock or something up above there just to tie that all in together. With my filbert brush, a little blue and a little brown, which just makes a darker brown. Let's add a little bit of rock to the hillside here, just to contain that water some. Excellent. And let's go ahead and, we've put in all that grass and water, and we sort of covered up our stones, our rocks on the water's edge. So let's just go ahead and fill that back in with just this dark brown. Make rocks on both sides of the cliff there, and kind of make them uneven, kind of like they're down into the water a little bit, protruding into the water, so it's just not a straight line. And let's go ahead and start a little bit of highlighting on those. It's just, all I have is a little brown, white, and a little touch of that greenish color. I don't want these extremely bright back here because they're kind of behind the hillside, so really not a whole lot of light would be hitting on them. Do the same thing on the other side, just hit the tops of the rocks. Learn to use this knife. I'll tell you, that's one of the most incredible tools. It took me forever to learn how to use the knife. I really fought with it, especially being a left-hander. But I'll tell you, once you master using the knife, oh my gosh, there is just so many things that you can do that you can't do with a brush. So work with that knife. Really, really pay attention to it and just play with it. Take out a piece of cardboard or something and just practice nothing but rocks. Do a dark color first and then lay some highlight over the top of it. And boy, in no time at all, you will just be amazed at what you can do with the knife. So I want to add some of these rocks into the grass also. It will add just a lot more interest to your ground. Let's highlight the top of these here. And let's just add a little bit more rock over here. See how much more interesting that makes the ground look? And let's also go ahead and highlight these rocks in the water. when I use this knife on these rocks, it's almost like making mountains, except that they're just little itty-bitty mountains. They're little tiny ones. But it's the same principle, just a very light touch. See, now that looks so real. And now, taking my filbert brush, I'm just going straight into yellow, and a very thick yellow, because I want to make a few little flowers on these hillsides here, just to add a little spark of interest. Very thick paint, but a very light touch. Quickly wipe the brush off, and then just go into some red and do the very same thing with just a few little taps of red. Red and green are complementary colors to each other, and they look beautiful together. And especially with that little touch of yellow, oh my, that really makes it stand out. And if you want, you could use different colors. You could add some oranges in there, and some purples, maybe some whites, and make like daisies. Just whatever kind of flowers you want to add would be great. And now, with just a hair lighter brown, I want to just highlight these stones a little bit more in specific areas, just where the light would be shining more. I wouldn't highlight all the rocks, but there are a few places where the light would hit more. You guys are going to have to let me know if you do this painting, and if so, how you changed it, or if you liked it, or if you had fun with it. I would love to know. And then with my dark brown, I want to go ahead and I want to finish out this little area right here by adding this stone, kind of to break up that water. There would be something here making the water go back and forth in different areas. Just a touch of highlight on here. Perfect. So now let's make a dark brown just by adding blue. You can add dark blue to your burnt sienna, and it will make a beautiful dark brown. So let's bring that tree all the way down. I want to bring it almost to the water. I want this tree to be more in the forefront, so it makes it look much closer by bringing this way down. And then on the other side, I want to bring this trunk about halfway down the hill. So it's set further back, but still closer than the other tree that's way in the background. And then with my knife, I want to load it with just a little bit of light brown highlight, and we're just going to make little taps to make this tree bark. See, that's another thing. The knife just does a beautiful job on making tree bark. And it's hard to say whether it's going to be easier for you to hold that knife right side up or upside down. You'll have to try it both ways to see what works best for you, because one way is going to feel very comfortable. The other way won't feel so comfortable. So try your knife both ways. And just make as much tree bark as you want on each tree. Now on this side, we're highlighting on the left, the right side of the tree. Just little taps, and a little bit back here also. Perfect. That is just perfect. And then with just a little tiny bit of white on the small edge of the knife, let's just go ahead and add just a few little water lines down in the water here, under the stones, just to separate the stones from the water. Don't get them too bright though, because this would be more in the darkness. Let's do that same thing on the other side. Yeah, I really like this painting. I love the brighter colors in this one, and I just think it turned out very good. So here's the finished results after adding a few little highlights and changing the color a little bit. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next time.